Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
So I can start, right?
Yes, sure.
So my session will
So
end at
just
6:30.
after your lecture, we will have a brief valedictory sessions.
So my lecture is supposed to be end by 6:30, right?
Yeah, yeah, 6:30.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So just let me share my screen. So can anyone please confirm? Can you like see my screen? There is a
Yes,
PowerPoint presentation.
yes, we can see your screen. Just make it full screen because next slide is also visible.
Okay. Yeah. So just let me- how about now? Should be
Yeah, it is perfect now.
okay. Yeah. Please. Yeah. Hey, thank you everyone. So today I'll try to like talk something about language models. So language models is like our interest is more on large language models. So I will start with language models and then I will gradually move to large language models and ChatGPT. So today, so I will try to I'll not try to be like too much technical, but I will try to like give you the concepts and also try to like give some ideas where you can use these models for your in your cases. So I'll try to cover those stuff. So at the beginning, just give you some generic concept. I think this is a what overall the program is on AI and machine learning. So I think you already learn or know about this stuff. But I will just give a very quick overview because sometimes people actually confuse this stuff. So at the top of this area, which is what we know as artificial intelligence and or AI, is actually a discipline, and machine learning is actually a subfield of artificial intelligence. And then we know about machine learning. Machine learning consists of both supervised and unsupervised models. And then, which is very interesting, I think you have the session yesterday, I think, about deep learning. So deep learning is actually a subset of machine learning. So if we consider machine learning, it consists of supervised and unsupervised learning, deep learning, and also reinforcement learning. So these are all subset of machine learning. And I think you know about this. This is a basic neural network, and all kind of like deep learning. Those are built on this neural network. Wait. So this is the basic block of any deep learning based models, the neural network. So today we are quite a bit interested about our topic of interest is language model, and another thing which is very related to language models is generative AI. So generative AI is also a subset of deep learning. So generative AI and large language models actually intersects a lot. So we will actually see some of the components that are actually known as generative AI. So we can actually classify these models into these two parts. One is called discriminative, and another one is generative. So by discriminative models, I mean you can actually classify something. For example, here you can see there is a picture of dog, and the discriminative model can actually classify this as a dog. Or maybe if you show it a cat, then it can actually classify it as a cat. But the generative technique is a bit more to the discriminative one. So it not only classify this as a dog or cat, it can also generate contents based on its classification. Maybe it can generate a new animation of dog. It can create a new image of dog. So generative models actually generate those stuff. So if we consider those two, the predictive or discriminative ML model, you give some data as well as labels. So it learns from the data and the labels, and then so that's the training phase, and then you give some new data, it will give an output of a different level. But for generative AI models, you only give it some unstructured content as input. There are no labels, but the generative AI will actually learn from the patterns in those content. And interestingly, it can then output totally new contents. So large language models or large language models actually use these generative AI models to generate new contents. So large language models, our topic of interest for today, is also a subset of deep learning. So this is just an overview of AI, ML, deep learning. So now let's come to the point, what is actually language models? So language models are actually computational models that are designed to understand and generate human language. So they are usually trained on large amount of textual data to learn different patterns, relationships, and statistical probabilities associated with the words, phrases, and sentences. So the main goal is, by understanding those concepts, is to capture the structure and semantics of language, and by whom we can actually perform a wide range of NLP or natural language processing tasks. So that's the basic of language models. And there are actually two types of language model. One is the statistical language models, and one is neural language models. Statistical language model actually use different statistical methods to estimate the probability of a sequence of words. And some widely used statistical language models are N-gram models, Markov models. Those are the widely used statistical language models. But the problem is it struggles with capturing long dependencies. So it can actually understand a context by a very limited number of words. So when you have a large words and sentences, and you have definitely meanings across different sentences, these statistical language models are not capable to understand those relationships. Then comes the neural language models, and by now, all the language models or all the large language models, they are possible due to these neural language models. So what they did, they actually utilized different deep learning techniques. We'll say some of them a bit later, mainly RNNs or transformer. So they actually learn sequential dependencies, and they have the capability to learn beyond just a couple of words. So the understand of the words or phrases in a sentence is much more better in neural language model compared to the statistical one. So that's significantly improved the performance and capabilities of language models to understand and generate different tasks. So what is large language models? So the large language models refer to large general purpose language models that can be pre-trained and then fine-tuned for specific purposes. So we'll see what do we actually mean by pre-train and then fine-tune. So let's see. Suppose if you want to train a basic dog, by training, I'm not meaning training of machine learning algorithm. You have a dog and you want to train your dog. So these are some basic features. So you want your dog to sit, you can ask, come towards you, it will come. It can sit down, it can stay at some specific points. But these are the basic properties that you want your dog to learn. Suppose you can see there are some special dogs, right? There may be police dog, there may be guide dog or hunting dog. So those dogs already know how to stay, calm, sit. But if you want to add those characteristics to them, then you need to have some form of special training. So this concept actually can be relate with the concept of pre-training and fine-tuning. So in pre-training, you train your dog with those basic commands, And then one of those dog can be a police dog, and you just add some more trainings related to police dog, which are called special trainings, and then it can perform its capability as a police dog. So large language models, actually what it did, all the language models are actually trained for general purposes to solve some common language problems. So the tasks that I'm showing, these are the very basic NLP tasks. One is machine translation, where you can translate one sentence to another, like two sentences in another language. You can have text classification, where you can classify a text. It can be a spam detection. It can be sentiment classification. Another task which is very popular in NLP, which is called question answering. So you can actually answer question based on some context. Document summarization. So whether you give a document and the models can actually summarize the documents. And text generation. Text generation means you can actually use the model to generate some text. So these are actually the common language problems that the large language models are trained for. But the interesting thing is, because those large language models are actually trained on a significant amount of data, so they actually learned a lot. So this model can be then tailored to solve specific problems in different other fields using a very small size of field datasets. So at the first part, this is called actual pre-training. And when you have a pre-trained model, then that can actually generate or work on those tasks. And then you want to have the model perform a new task. Then you can actually achieve this by a very relatively small datasets. So these are the three major features of large language models. One is it is large. So the training dataset is of enormous size. Sometimes the training dataset is of a petabyte scale. And secondly, the number of parameters okay. So the number of parameters are huge. So in large language models, we often see billion of parameters. So in machine learning, parameters are often called hyperparameters. So these parameters are basically the memories and the knowledge that the machine learned during training. So actually those parameters define the skill of a model in solving a specific problem, such as you predict a test. So large means you have a large number of large training data set, and as well as you have a billion of hyperparameters. And then it is general purpose. All the large language models are general purpose. The models are sufficient to solve common problems. But the interesting thing is, there is the point. This is the resource restriction. Only certain organizations have the ability to train such language models with huge data sets and a tremendous number of parameters. That's why you can actually see, we will see later in the slides, all the large language models which are important or like used by large number of people come from few organizations like Google, Meta, OpenAI, because not every like organization, let alone individual researchers, have the capability to train such large models. So that's why the thing comes about pre-trained and fine-tuned. So because only few organizations have the capability to train such models, how about letting them create fundamental language models so that others will use? So this leads to actually pre-trained and fine-tuning, meaning to pre-train a large language model for a general purpose with a large data set, and then to fine-tune it for specific aims with a much smaller data set. So the first part, which is the pre-training, will actually done by those organizations who are capable of training those data sets, and they will release the model And then you will use the model for your task with a very much smaller specific field data. So what are the benefits of using large language models? Definitely, a single model can be used for different tasks. So this is actually a dream come true. Uh, with a single model, this model are smart enough to solve different tasks, including language translation, sentence completion, text classification, question answering, and more. And second, it requires minimal field training data when you tailor them to solve your specific problem. And interestingly, those pre-trained models obtain very decent performance even with little domain training data. And they can be used for few shot or even zero shot scenarios. So in machine learning, these two terms is also like widely used now and very important. Along with pre-training and fine-tuning, few shot and zero shot scenarios are widely used now. So what do we actually mean by few shot or zero shot scenario? So by few shot, I means you actually need very little field data or fine-tuning data to get a very good performance of your model. And zero shot means a model, when you train your model, you will have some like task in mind. Suppose, as I saw in the three slides before, a generic language models actually trained with machine translation, question answering, text summarization, those tasks in mind. So when zero shot means when you actually train the models, it actually learned some stuff that was not the actual task it was supposed to perform. So while training the large data set, it actually learned some stuff that is not supposed to learn based on its initial task list. So all all the large language models have some zero shot scenarios as well. So in that case, you don't actually need any data for fine tuning. Those models will automatically adapt to the new task. So ChatGPT will saw later in our slide is such model. In fact, the GPT model starts with the basic paper of GPT models that start with like zero shot learning with those generation tasks. And last and finally, the performance is continuously growing when you add more data and parameters. So you pre-train with certain amount of data and parameter, and then you add more data, and the performance is continuously growing. So ChatGPT is such an example, right? So when they start with GPT-1, GPT-2, GPT-3, 3.5, and now GPT-4, in most of the cases, the fundamental structure is same, but they add more data for training and add significant number of parameters. So the performance, we can now see the performance of ChatGPT. So I'll just give you a brief overview of the basic of all those models. I think I'm not sure whether you learned this in your previous sessions. This is the transformer models. So the transformer is a deep learning model that use two important concepts. One is self-attention and another one is a positional encoding. So the transformer model actually consists of two stuff. One is the encoder and the decoder. So if I say it in a very like non-technical way, so the encoder actually encodes the input sequence, passes through the decoder, and the decoder actually will generate a new sequence. So transformer-based models actually widely used now for sequence-to-sequence model. So if you give an input sequence, the encoder encode the input sequence, do some stuff, and you can say it as a magic now, and then the decoder will generate a new sequence. So the transformer model is the basic block of all the language models or large language models, because transformer actually enables to train on such huge data sets. Before transformer, people used to have the recurrent neural networks. One kind of recurrent neural networks is LSTM. Those models were the state of the art for all the neural language models. And then came transformer. It requires less training time, and it also enables large data set to be trained due to its inherent parallelization. The transformer, though it is initially like uh, the initial task of transformer was just to like work in the NLP field, but it is now not only used in NLP, rather in computer vision, audio, and multimodal. In everywhere you can see transformer. And many large language models, GPT-2, 3, 4, BART, we'll see that later, all of those, that the building block of those models is transformer. So you can actually see the ability of transformer to perform such wide variety of NLP tasks. So in a figure, I can see transformer got two components. One is the encoding component and the decoding component. So in the encoding component, you give an input, then transformer will decode to another input. So here it is a example of machine translation. So you give a word in an input sentence, and the transformer will actually output a translated English word. So this is called sequence to sequence generation. And transformer, because of those self-attention and positional encoding, it have multi-heads. So compared to recurrent neural network, it is more parallelizable and more efficient. That's why it can actually consume much larger or longer data sets compared to those previous state of the art. So now let's come, how are we actually moving to these neural networks or generative networks? At the beginning, traditional programming, if we want to identify a cat, I need to specify those terms, like this is a type of animal, it has 4 legs, 2 ears, it has furs. So this is a traditional program. Then with neural networks, you don't need to actually specify those things, right? So now in your model, you can actually just show it a picture of a cat, and then you show this is not a cat. So you show the model a large number of pictures of cats and other animals, and then you can give a picture of a cat and ask, is this a cat? So it will say, okay, yeah, this is a cat. But that's like long ago, right? That's back in 2012. But now with generative AI, you don't need to like ask the model or train the model to learn about cats. So what do you do? In the generative, so if we give a like good analogy, you just ask the model, go read this huge pile of books. So the model will read those books, automatically understand different idea, different concept mentioned about books. And then you will ask, okay, you have learned about a lot of things, and cat is one of those things. So now tell me what's cat. So now we are actually in this area. So you don't need to ask your model to specifically train on detecting this is a cat. Rather, you give it a pile of text, and it will like read those texts, understand, and then you can ask the model, okay, what is this? And it will actually like give to you all the things it learns for that specific concept. So what is the difference between large language models and traditional machine learning development? So when you have a large language model, you don't need to be an expert, right? We all, some of you, I'm not sure, but after today's lecture, I think all of us will actually know how we can work with ChatGPT at the end of the lecture. But we don't need to be an expert, because with large language models, we don't need any training examples, and there is no need to train a model as well. What you need to do is to think about a prompt design. We will see about prompt design a little bit later in the slide. But in traditional machine learning, you actually need training examples, right? So you need to have some data with levels. You need to train those data. So if you want to do the training, you also need some compute time and hardware. So for example, if we say about question answering is a very like popular NLP task. If we say a question answering task before generative, in that case, the model need to have some like domain knowledge to generate answer of a specific question if you consider about traditional machine learning. But now with generative question answering, the model don't need any kind of domain knowledge because it actually needs those stuff from the training data, and then you ask something, then it will just generate free text. So for example, here you can see this is like output of a GPT model. So in the input, you say how is it going, and the model is saying I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking how are you. Right. So you don't need to specify any of this. It learns from the training data and it generates free text. So for an example, I'll show you some question answering scripts that the large language models actually now can generate. For example, in the question one, you can see this year's sales are like $1,000, $100,000, expenses are $60,000. How much is net profit? So the large language models can actually generate the net profits and not just like it totally generate the net profit. Rather, it actually says you how it's calculating the net profit. A similar example is here. Inventory is on hand is 6,000 units. New order requires 8,000 units. How many units do I need to fill the complete the order? So it also give you like accurate answer, 200 units. And then we have 100 sensors in 10 geographic regions. How many sensors do we have an average in each region? So, and interestingly, because we will cover ChatGPT at the end of our lecture, all the responses, none of the single responses I'm showing here is from ChatGPT. So this is some other models. But what I'm saying here, all the models, all the question answering, the model is capable to give you the exact answer that you're looking for. But why is that? Or how is that? So because you carefully ask very good questions. And these questions are actually known as prompt design. So prompt design is the process of creating prompts that elicit the desired responses from a language model. And believe me, one of the like hot research topic in large language models or like GPT models now is prompt design and engineering. How you can like create a good prompt so it will like give you the desired answer. So now let's see. So two concepts is very important. One is prompt design and another one is prompt engineering. So if we come to the definition, so prompt design is the process of creating a prompt that is tailored to the specific task that the system is being asked to perform. For example, if the system is being asked to translate the text from English to French, you should return the prompt in English and should specify the translation should be in French. So prompt design is normal. You need to do prompt design. But the prompt engineering is actually processing of creating prompt that is designed to improve performance. So prompt design, you have to design prompt if you want to interact with the large language models. But if you want to get maximum output or maximum performance, then you need to think about prompt engineering. That includes using domain specific language so that or keywords that are known to be effective by the specific system. So prompt design is a more general concept. So prompt engineering is more a specialized concept. And prompt design is essential, but prompt engineering is only necessary if you need higher degree of accuracy or performance. So now let's come, what are the different kinds of large language models are there? So we can classify large language model into like three types. One is the generic language models. One is the generic language models. One is the instruction tuned models. And one is the dialogue tuned models. So now first come generic language models. So the part of the generic language models is actually the predict the next word based on the language in the training data. For example, we can see the cat sat on something. So the most likely next word is the. So the generic language model will actually give you the. So if you can also consider this as kind of like autocomplete. So you have a part of the sentence and you are looking for the next word. So the generic language models will give you that word. And it will also give, because this is, this is not deterministic model, right? In the behind, it has got a large number of probabilistic stuff. So it will not actually give you one single answer. So it will give you, okay, the most likely next word is the next most likely next word is a, and there are some other words which are less likely. So this is the generic language models. Then comes the instruction tuned language models. So here, these models are trained to predict a response to the instructions given in the input. For example, you ask, okay, this is X, please summarize a text of X, or generate a poem in the style of X, or give a list of keywords based on semantic similarity for X. So the large language model will take this as an input and it will give you output. So here you can see the first task is summarization. Next task is you are asking to write a poem, to generate a poem, which is writing. And the last one is keyword extraction. So instruction tuned language models actually get those instruction as a input and it will automatically generate you output. So ChatGPT type models, it's not actually instruction tuned, but they can support instruction tuned models. So ChatGPT models are actually, we'll see a bit later. So this is another example of instruction tuned models. Here you ask, okay, I have this text, classify the text into neutral, negative, or positive. So this is actually a sentiments classification problem. So you can ask the instruction tuned model, give an instruction and data, and it will output the sentiment. So next comes the last of such model, which is dialogue tuned model. So ChatGPT is one kind of dialogue tuned model. So this is actually a special case of instruction tuned model where requests are typically framed and questioned to a chatbot. So as if you are actually working with a chatbot and you ask it question and it will reply and then you can ask more questions. For example, here the user is asking, is the comment, do you like the weather, okay or toxic? So the bot says, okay. So the user says, can you briefly say why? And the model says, it's just a question about the weather. People are not usually upset by that. So this is a dialogue tuned model, which are actually a special case of instruction tuned model. Here you can also ask, okay, like generate a summary of this. So it will give you a summary. So this type models can also performs both. It can perform instruction tuned responses and as well as it can actually behave with you like it is a chatbot. So if we see some examples, so this is a same thing again. None of the responses are generated by ChatGPT. So I'm making a sandwich with peanut butter and so it will give you a large number of different options. For example, you can actually ask, okay, I'm making a sandwich with peanut butter and so it can say, sure, I can help you with that. Here are some of the most popular spreads to put on a peanut butter sandwich. Okay. And this is interesting, right? So you ask, the meaning of life is. So just see the response, right? The meaning of life is a question that has been pondered by philosophers and the audience for centuries. There is no one answer that will satisfy everyone, but some possible answers include. So just see the smartness or the power of those language models. But as I said, because we will cover ChatGPT later, none of these models, the generation are from ChatGPT. I'll say later what is this model. So now comes back to the foundation model that we see at the beginning. So this is important because you will find, I think some of you asked in a question, like how to do practical like large language models. So large language models are developed so that you don't need to like generate or create a large language model by yourself. No, because we are not capable of actually creating another large language model because the resource that we require is like very costly and most of the individual they are not like capable of like having such resources. So that's why I say some few large organizations, they will actually provide you some foundation models. So they will be trained on some text, maybe image, speech, 3D data, structured data, and you can adapt those for a large number of tasks. And I'm specifically like showing you this because when you see about language models or large language models, most of the large language models, they actually take text as input and output text. So for example, ChatGPT actually takes text as input and output a different text. But here, if you can see the model, the foundation models actually can take a number of different modes of inputs, and it can be adapted for a number of different tasks. Like for example, here if you can see image captioning, object recognition, those are all works on if you have some image data or maybe some video data. So foundation models are a way to go forward where you will like take the foundation, large foundation models, and you will fine tune it or you will adapt it for your own purpose. So now if we see the large range of application, you can see it has application on text, image, speech, video, 3D models, as well as gaming, biology and chemistry. The one interesting thing is now those large language models can actually generate code. So let's see an example of such models. Here you are writing to a large language model. I have a pandas data frame with 2 columns, file name and hour it generates. I am trying to convert it to a JSON file with the following format. How can I do this? So this is a question to a large language model. And let's see the output. Okay, sure. Here are the steps on how to convert a pandas data frame to a JSON file with desired format. So import the pandas library, create a pandas data frame with the following data, and then it will actually show you, okay, use the toJSON method to convert the data frame. So these are all mentioned by the large language models. And interestingly, it will also give you the code and also give you the data. You can download the Python code and you can use it for your purposes. So now large language models not only like deal with the language stuff, like human language stuff, now it can also include the programming languages as well. So this is a big way to go forward. So ChatGPT type models can also generate codes now. So now let's see a few examples of large language models. We will see few examples of large language models that have made significant contributions to the field of natural language processing. But we need to keep in mind that each model has its unique characteristics and strengths, and researchers continue to explore and develop even more advanced models to push the boundary of both language understanding and generation. So let's start with BERT. So BERT means bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. The model was generated by or developed by Google. So BERT is actually based on the concept called MLM or masked language modeling. So masked language modeling enables bidirectional learning from a text by masking a word in a sentence. So you have a sentence in your training data, you selectively mask 1 or 2 words and then sentence and ask the model to predict the masked word. So in that case, because all of these are powered by transformer, so it can actually see words or analyzes words both sides. That's why it says bidirectional, and BERT can actually use the bidirectional way to find which word to put in those masks. So this is the first concept where like this masked language modeling was introduced to predict the next word, and it has been trained on a massive amount of data. And BERT, what it did, BERT has significantly advanced the field of natural language understanding. So BERT can do a lot of understanding, including sentiment classification, question answering. So BERT was like the state-of-the-art model that can do a lot of like those stuff, and it is also powered by transformers. And then we all know about GPT. So GPT is actually a generative pre-trained transformer developed by OpenAI. So GPT, the basic model was GPT-1, which was not remarkable, but GPT. So BERT is actually used for language understanding, and GPT is actually used for language generation. So the the powerful GPT model at the beginning was GPT-2, which was 1.5 billion parameters and demonstrate remarkable language generation capabilities. So it can generate coherent text, but at the same time, GPT-2 has some problems that it can actually generate deceptive or biased content, and sometimes garbage as well, because that's the like problem of those models. It won't be perfect 100% of time. Then comes GPT-3, which consists of 175 billion parameters, and the performance of GPT-3 was much better than GPT-2, as we expected for a large language model. You give it more data, the model is more complex with large number of parameters, so it will bound to perform better. Then another model, large language model, which is very popular before GPT, was T5, which is text-to-text transfer transformer by Google. So this is a versatile language model. Someone raised hand. So if you have any question. So we'll take question now or later. Mr. Narayanan. Okay, so let me continue. So T5 actually achieved state-of-the-art result on several benchmarks and has shown promising performance for many generation tasks. So before GPT models become like mainstream, T5 was the go-to model for text generation tasks. And then Roberta. Roberta is another like model which is widely used. This is known as robustly optimized BERT. So this is actually optimized variant of BERT, and it in some of the use cases it performs better than the actual BERT. Then the recent state-of-the-art models. One is the GPT-4 model, which is the latest model developed by OpenAI, and they don't release anything about the GPT-4 model. This is unknown size, not open source. You only have API access if you actually get subscription of ChatGPT. But the interesting thing is, ChatGPT models is only like text to text, but GPT-4 is not strictly a language model because it can take input as images. It can take image as input. Then ChatGPT. So we know about ChatGPT. We'll see ChatGPT a bit later. So it's also by OpenAI, not open source, by API access. So this is a text-only model that can perform a lot of text-based functions that GPT-4 does. So ChatGPT is actually a sibling model to instruct GPT. And we will see today, the basic access to ChatGPT does not require a subscription. So making it very suitable for our personal projects or experimentation. Another model, maybe some of you heard about this, which is Bloom. So Bloom is by Big Science, which is a model of 176 billion parameters. It is downloadable and also hosted API is available. So it can generate text in 46 different natural languages and 13 programming languages. So this is another like huge model that is another huge large language models. Then I think some of you maybe heard about Lambda. So this is a language model for dialogue applications by Google, which has 173 billion parameters, not open source, no API. And this is actually Google's response to ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT, to have their own model. So it is designed to have more natural and engaging conversation with user. And the conversational service that is powered by Lambda, which is called Bird, and the API will be available. I think the API is available. So Google Bird is kind of similar to OpenAI's ChatGPT. And all the examples that we show before for question answering and the other examples and code generations, all are examples of Google Bird. Another one that is now widely used and very important large language models is known as Llama, which is by Meta AI, Meta or Facebook. So this comes with multiple sizes and it is downloadable by applications. So you can ask them a request and they will give you the model. So Llama model is available in multiple parameters from 7 billion to 65 billion. So it is important because they keep the parameter count into different direction so that, so Meta claims the Llama could help democratize access to this field because like this field, as we say, being hampered by the computing power required to train large models. Then comes the Alpasa model, which is by Stanford, and it's actually fine-tuned from Meta's 7 billion parameters model. And one of the main goals of this model is help to academic community engage with the models by providing an open source model that rivals GPT 3.5 model, which is ChatGPT. So Alpasa has been kept small and cheap so that it can be used like many people. So that's all about large language models. So you can, so another thing is most of the models are actually available publicly. If you go to Hugging Face, in Hugging Face, you can actually use this model for inference or fine tune or preview. So the models that I show that they are available, you can actually use those models. Now let's move to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, if we all follow the lecture or the presentation so far carefully, so ChatGPT is actually a dialogue tuned or like special kind of instruction tune that is known as dialogue tuned large language model. And this is introduced by OpenAI. And just have a look how long it took to hit 100 million monthly users. Only 2 months. So this just like storm the internet and those stuff. The ChatGPT. So ChatGPT actually based on GPT 3.5, which is a large language model, and in GPT 3.5, so this 175 billion parameters, it can take 500 billion tokens. So that's huge. And interestingly, because those are not like open source, OpenAI actually keep some of things to themselves, so they are not public. So ChatGPT, which is important because ChatGPT works with some moderated way. Right? So in ChatGPT, we have a user prompt. So that prompt is actually evaluated by the ChatGPT evaluator. And if it is unsafe, then it will give you back to the prompt. And if it is safe, then the ChatGPT will kick in and it will give the completed result to the user. So that's important. ChatGPT actually have those. So this kind of thing was initially absent in GPT models. In GPT models, you can actually generate some biased or hateful stuff. So ChatGPT actually limit those stuff using those evaluation. And one interesting thing is I will just briefly discuss, which is like a one of the main reason of the better performance of ChatGPT models, which is known as RLHF, or we can see reinforcement learning with human feedback. So how it works, you can see you have a fine-tuned GPT model, then you train a reward model, and then it optimizes using a reinforcement learning, and you get a ChatGPT model. So we will see after this talk, like a real ChatGPT. So in ChatGPT, when you ask a question, the ChatGPT will give you an answer, and at the same time, you can actually evaluate that answer. And you can also, suppose you ask a question to ChatGPT, and the ChatGPT will give you an answer, then you can ask to generate a new answer on the same topic again. So it will generate an answer, and you have the opportunity, or you can actually tell the ChatGPT, okay, this answer is more better than the previous one, or this answer is not better, or like it's low quality compared to the previous one. So you can actually provide this feedback to the ChatGPT models with specific reasoning. So ChatGPT can actually learn from those feedback, and using reinforcement learning, it will actually correct the model so it can generate better stuff next. So if you can give an analogy, you can see at the right side something like a chef who is actually like famous for like uh, making burgers, but based on the taste of the user and the feedback, it will try. So the chef will actually try different variant of burger, and based on the feedback of the users, it will actually change its way how it actually make the burger. So ChatGPT, this is very important for ChatGPT. It encompasses human feedback, and then using the human feedback, it can reinforce the model to learn those feedbacks and generate better responses. So this is one of the key performance, like key reasons for the better performance of ChatGPT. And another thing which is very important, ChatGPT actually work in context, because this is a dialogue tune. So for example, in ChatGPT, if you ask who is the Prime Minister of India, so it will ask the Prime Minister of India was Narendra Modi. So already the India and the Prime Minister and Narendra Modi is included in his context. So when you ask what is his age, ChatGPT already know you were talking about the Prime Minister of India, right? So this is called a context. So when you chat with the ChatGPT in that specific session, it actually generates those contexts so that it can actually answer based on those contexts. And some of this context, based on this context, it also serves for like the text that is harmful and those stuff. So it will not generate like harmful text. So that's all about ChatGPT. So if you have any question, then you can ask. Otherwise, I will go for a live demonstration of ChatGPT. So I'll just like stop the presentation here. For the next 30 minutes, I will try to like give you like live demonstration of how ChatGPT works and like what kind of questions you can ask. So more about the prompt design that we like say at the beginning. So if you have any question, just you can ask, and then I will go to uh, the demonstration. Please feel free to ask if you have any question. Anyone? Can you hear me? Like, are you hearing me clearly? No? All right. Okay. One is, let me say, one is uh, difference between Google versus. Oh, okay, yeah. So well, Google is if you say about Google search, the Google search have its own technique, right? So Google search is at the beginning before ChatGPT. Google search is just it search on its text. It is like some uh, search. This is a search engine, right? So search engine works in its own way, and in Google you don't actually. So you ask a question, you get an answer, and then you go on and ask another search query, right? So there is no context. So when you do Google search, there is no context. But in ChatGPT, you can see there are contexts. We'll see. And another question is difference between large language models and okay. So large language models, as I said, with large language models, you 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 don't need to be an expert to use the large language model. But for another NLP models, those are not large. Maybe you need to get the model. You need to like specifically fine tune it for your own purpose. And then, for example, bird. If you use bird, so bird has its own like task it can perform, and then you want to add a different task. Then maybe you need to fine tune bird for that specific task, and then you will get results. So you need to have some form of expertise. But for large language models, in most of the cases, you did not don't need those expertise. You just need to know what are the large language models are there, what different kind of stuffs they can learn, how you actually get the best response out of them, and you're done. Okay, so uh, okay, I will come to the question answering part again. So let's go to uh, like how we can use ChatGPT, because it is interesting, and if you can like believe me, I also learned a lot of different uh, way one can actually use ChatGPT. I didn't know myself what are the different type of like things you can ask, and how often actually is ChatGPT. So let's start. So if just let me share my screen. Let's see how we can see that. Okay, I think you can see my screen. So this is, you can see. Okay, it can do a lot of. I'll start from fresh. So you go to chat.openai.com, and then you can actually like register yourself, and then you can uh, uh, use chat gpt. So interestingly is these are free preview, so it might happen that while I am showing it to you, it can suddenly stop working, because these are free version and also like non-paid. So all the non-paid versions actually use GPT 3.5. So if you have a paid subscription, then you have a choice of using GPT-4 with ChatGPT. So let's start ChatGPT with a uh, fixed question. So here you can see I have some just question in my mind. I saved it, and so you can ask like, who is the founder of Apple? So see, so the co-founders of Apple are Steve Jobs, blah blah blah. So it can definitely give you answer to any question, and it's interesting. Like these are generative transformers, so it's actually not generating the whole response at once. Rather, it generates the responses word by word. So it generates a response, and then it generates the next word based on the whole response. It can generate the next word because it's generating it in very fast way. So you're saying, okay, these are the uh, text. So then I can also ask it. Definitely, I can ask it specific question like, who wrote the book How to Kill a Mockingbird? And definitely it. So now it's taking time. It is free. So the book To Kill a Mockingbird is blah blah blah, and it'll get our responses. So these are the specific questions, and these are not interesting because Google search will also give you. Then it can also give you suggestions. For example, let's ask it What are some good shows to watch on Netflix? It's taking time. Let's see. However, I can provide you the list of popular show positive review. May vary based on a region and Netflix content library. Okay, yeah, so start generating with a background, right? Stranger Things, Breaking Bad. These are all the suggestions it is giving you the show to see on Netflix. And it will generate. Okay, so you can also stop generating at any point of time. So ChatGPT can actually do this. These are bit interesting, but let's say another very interesting task, which is translation. Let's ask ChatGPT that I'm currently traveling to Spain. I'm in a restaurant. I want to ask the waiter, what are your three most popular dishes? Can you translate this for me? So ChatGPT, okay, yeah. So suddenly, would like to ask the waiter, what are three most popular dishes in Spanish? You can say, so you don't actually know like how to pronounce this. So you can actually go ahead and ask it, how do you pronounce that? Because it has the context. So look how awesome it is. It's saying the, so it actually pronounce the Spanish text of what are your three most popular dishes. So this way you can actually create a translation. So this is a real world scenario. We go somewhere else, we don't know English, and you can actually translate that word for you, and at the same time it can give you pronunciation. And at any point of time you can actually do anything. Like you can just type, for example, translate to Hindi, like I like Hindi movies. Yeah, right. I think you can confirm the translation is right, right? So मुझे हिंदी फिल्म में पसंद है. So ChatGPT can like generate or all these kind of interesting translations for you. This is not also like very interesting. We'll see some more interesting response or question that you can ask. So in ChatGPT, you can also ask something like this. What is the difference between cats and dogs and pets? So it will give you the difference point by point. Behavior, exercise and energy levels, training, maintenance and care, size and space. So a lot of this. And at the same time, now you can just a long sentence. So you can ask the chat GPT something like this. Too many texts. So you can actually rewrite this in under 200 words, but pretend like you are writing to a complete beginner or someone that is in the fifth grade. So it will rewrite in a very simple way in 200 words. Done, right? And if you can see carefully, very like simple words. So this is, and so this ChatGPT can do this kind of comparison. Another thing that I will see, ChatGPT is very good for creative writing. For example, I can ask ChatGPT, okay, let's uh, create a new chat, just different content. Okay, so write a short story about a caterpillar that falls off a tree, loses its family, and then is united. Make sure it's super funny and make it a feel-good story. So ChatGPT will take some time because it's free. It will actually generate a story about that. Like we started. Once upon a time, in the enchanting kingdom of Flutterland, there lived a lively adventurous caterpillar named Karl. So it's generating a story for you. So this is creative writing. ChatGPT is very good with creative writing. It already generated an imaginary character, which is Karl, which is a caterpillar, and it's generating a story. But you can do like this. Now you can just just stop generating. Okay, you can see I don't know the story. Rewrite this as a song. So it can give you a song verse by verse and chorus and another verse. So it's just creating a song of the same writing. And then you can see, okay, stop. I generate this as a point. So it will actually create a point. Okay. So we can definitely see it's wonderful in creative writing. Not only like this, you can also use it for your daily email activities. So stop generating. I get a new chat. Okay, write an email to your manager that you're suffering from fever and you won't be able to come to office today. So it will generate an email for you. Subject, dear manager's name. And I think definitely at some point of time it might, it involved. So when I last used that is the same example. It involves COVID. Okay, so definitely, and you can actually regenerate the response again. So when you regenerate the response, you can see this is 2 by 2. So this is a second response that is generating. And this is the RLHF that we talked about. So what is response, better or same? Better. So it's a better. So it takes that feedback and it will update its model. So that response is better than the previous. So ChatGPT can actually. So in most of the cases, pretty straightforward. You can just copy paste this email and send using your Gmail. So ChatGPT is very good in creative writing. So the next thing is summarize. So it can actually summarize. So for example, I can give. So this is, for example, to summarize this. So suppose I go to let's see, Pride and Prejudice, the famous, which is available in the internet, I think, chapter 1. So I go to chapter 1 of Pride and Prejudice. It's a very common example for summary. So I go copy the content, and I just say summarize this. So I have a long text, which is just a chapter 1 of Pride and Prejudice, and ChatGPT is summarizing the stuff. And interesting, it will be different, right? When I generate previously, it starts with that this text is actually from Pride and Prejudice. So stop generating and regenerate response. It will okay, yeah. So error. So let's not over push it. So ChatGPT can actually summarize stuff. Then it can actually use ChatGPT to generate lists. For example, let's see. I'm trying to lose weight. Please give me a list of 10 foods to eat that are healthy. Okay. Yeah. So it will give you a list of 10 fruits that are support your weight loss, right? So it will give you all the list. And then You say, oh, sorry, I forgot to say I'm vegan. So it knows in the context. If you want to generate the 10 healthy foods, so now it will give your response, okay, I'm vegan. So now it will generate a different list, a modified list of 10 healthy vegan. So it can also do this kind of stuff. Next, just uh, give some, it can also very good at generate codes. I think maybe some of you stop generating. I can ask him, okay, give me 3 codes about success. So it will give you 3 code about success. That's it. You can also ask. So another thing which is very important is ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT on some as your writing tutor. For example, for suppose I go to the again the Pride Prejudice again context. So for example, I uh, for example I just copy this star and ask him. Suppose as if that is my own writing. Give me feedback on this text. So it now it can it understand provided it appears to be an excerpt from novel, so it's not your own text, and it creates a feedback. So how, I can ask it, okay, how would you rewrite this? It's rewriting that stuff. So ChatGPT can be used a lot of way for like as your own writing teacher. This is very important, very useful for when your grades, when you try to grade some text from the for the students. You can actually use ChatGPT. Get like it won't give you a score, but it will give you a good feedback of how the text is. And another thing is it can actually explain concept for you. For example, if I write go to a new chat, I write, okay, if a circle has a diameter of 10 centimeter, what is the area? It will give you, okay, to find the area of circle, you can use the formula, blah, blah, blah. It will give you exact radius with appropriate reasoning. But at the same time, you can ask it, no, can you explain the formula to find out the area of a circle? So it will explain you how you can actually certain. So it is explaining to you how the formula actually works. It's wonderful. So you can use ChatGPT for this. And another thing is, which is very important, I will end with this. You can actually ask ChatGPT what to ask to ChatGPT. For example, you can ask ChatGPT, let's see, I have an essay I wrote and I want to know what type of commands I can ask you regarding editing my content. So it will give a list no word limit, actually no word limit. As you can see, I can give a summary of the whole Pride and Prejudice stuff. So you can give me. So suppose this is I can definitely assure you many of the people who actually use ChatGPT don't know you can actually ask ChatGPT to what to ask it. So you can actually ask a different type of things. Check for any grammatical errors. Can you proofread my essay? Any run-on sentences. So you can actually ask this question to ChatGPT, and there is actually no, but some of because it's just continuously it's getting information. So Oh, that's an interesting question, but I'll. So then the last thing that I'll show you. Yeah. So this is important. How can I use ChatGPT to help me write code? We can ask you, what is the syntax for a for loop in Python? I'm getting an undefined variable. What could be causing it? You can ask so different type of question. So how can make an HTTP request using the request library in Python? So you can ask that type of question. So what I'm doing, I'm asking ChatGPT how I can ask ChatGPT about questions to how to write code. So these things are very useful. If you use ChatGPT, these things are very useful. But you need to be careful about two things. One is plagiarism, right? Because one thing you can actually ask ChatGPT to solve your problem and then present someone else that this is your job, not so. That's one kind of plagiarism. So you need to be careful about that. The students on when you are doing stuff, and another thing is which is very important, and I think this is a very like critical question now. Like, does ChatGPT like maybe it's uh, it will like remove a large number of jobs? Okay? No. So that's interesting. ChatGPT doesn't have information about most of the people, at least not about myself. Do you know? Yes, definitely. I am not a celebrity. So no, it will not. No, I apologize. Right. But yeah, definitely. Do you know Diego Maradona? Yeah, definitely. Yes. Interesting. I can see one of the examples. It gives very interesting answer. Who is the greatest football player of all time? Starts with is subjective and often sparks debate among fans. So it starts not don't have any specific answer, but it starts with like a bureaucratic answer. The question of who is the greatest footballer of all time is subjective and often sparks debates among fans. And then we go ahead explain Pele, Maradona, Messi, and Ronaldo. Right? So, but yeah, it doesn't have any information about common people, but definitely it knows uh, because it knows Maradona, it will definitely know Shah Rukh Khan, right? Not us. So the question that yeah, some people are like actually fears about the jobs that ChatGPT will, but I don't think this is very because these are not like all time like ChatGPT is not all time like it's not always give you good results. So ChatGPT is still not good to provide like references. Sometimes it creates garbage or hallucinated text. Suppose you ask ChatGPT to give you some research paper on some topic, and you will see sometimes it will give you the list of paper. Some of them don't even exist. So it can generate text, and some of them which are actually like whole truths. Suppose a research paper written by some authors, it actually can generate those stuff. So there is there will be always such limitations to this. And interestingly, there are so many large language models, but still many people are like people like large companies, they actually have, yeah, they are cutting jobs, but at the same time, they're also hiring like relevant people. So you, based on the current scenario, maybe all of us need to learn bit of AI and machine learning to be like to be important in this thing. So maybe that's important. If you need to have a good job or to like be in your job, you need to. That's maybe one of the reasons of this whole AI and machine learning seminar or program. I think so. You need to be relevant. So you need to learn some form of AI or machine learning in whichever field you are from. You need to be relevant, and so you need to have some knowledge about AI, machine learning, these large language models like ChatGPT. Okay, so that's end from my side. I'll take any of the question. If you have any question, just feel free to ask me in the chat box, direct message, or any message is fine. Okay, the last call for questions. Maybe then I'll end. Okay, then okay. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you.
And
Hello. Sorry, participants, due to sudden breakdown in our internet connection, we got disconnected. I'm just making Madam Preeti is now, she is unable to, let me make her the co-host. Yeah. Yeah. Over to you, Professor.
so I'm so sorry, due to internet connection, I got disconnected. So, Professor Shahriyar, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So can we have a picture together? I request participant to please switch on your video.
Very nice to see you all once again. है ना?
So once again, thank you so much, all of you, for joining this course. And because since past 10 days we have done so many things together. So without taking much of your time, I will ask you to speak now. So this is your turn to let us know where we can improve upon, or if there is any difficulty you have faced, or whatever good or bad points, or I mean, your views. Just raise your hand so we will unmute you. Any one of you, if you'd like to speak something. So there is no procedure to claim the certificate. We will keep your records. And now it will take some time because the project is ending on 30th. So we will update your attendance. I will see your score in the quiz, and based on that, we will send you certificate on mail. So don't worry.
Anyone who would like to say anything?
Hello, ma'am.
Mitali, you are unmuted. So.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.